Delete one person from this family photo. That's what my daughter-in-law wrote on Facebook. And guess whose face she drew a big red circle around? Mine. Hundreds of people laughed and agreed I should disappear from my own family. But they didn't know one important secret: the house they all lived in. It was mine. Every single brick belonged to me. Before you judge me, let me tell you my story. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're from. Now, let's go back to where this all began. My name is Helen, and I'm 68 years old. This story starts with what should have been a happy moment. My son Michael had just gotten a better job at his company. He worked as an accountant and had been promoted to manager. His wife, Lisa, wanted to celebrate by taking a family picture to post online. These days, everything has to be posted on the internet, right? Nothing is real unless strangers can see it. Helen, stand over there, Lisa told me, pointing to the far corner of the group. She didn't call me Mom like she used to. Just Helen, like I was a stranger or someone who worked for her, not the woman who raised her husband. I went where she asked me to go. I watched as she carefully arranged Michael and their two children, Sophie, who was 16, and Max, who was 14, right in the middle of the photo. They looked like the perfect family. And me? I was pushed to the side, like an extra chair nobody needed. Lisa took about 50 pictures. Each time, she found something wrong. Michael, move your head a little. Sophie, smile bigger. Max, put down your phone for just 1 minute. But when she looked at me, she just let out a big sigh. Like having me there made her tired. The final photo looked beautiful, I have to admit. Michael looked great in his new suit. The kids looked like they belonged in a magazine. Lisa was glowing with happiness. Even I looked nice, standing a bit apart but smiling at my family. What I didn't know was what Lisa planned to do with that picture. 3 days later, my neighbor Betty came running to my door. Her face was red and she looked angry. Helen, honey, you need to see this right now, she said, shoving her phone in my face. There was our family photo, but now my face had a thick red circle around it. The words above the picture said, "Family game. If you could delete one person from this photo, who would you pick?" I think you already know my choice. My heart felt like it stopped beating. I scrolled down to read the comments. Each one hurt like someone was slapping me. Definitely the old lady. Why is she even there? Time to put her in a nursing home. Your family would look perfect without the extra person. Lisa had replied to these mean comments with laughing faces and heart emojis. She was enjoying this. My pain was fun for her and all her internet friends. Sitting there, staring at that cruel post, I remembered something from 12 years ago. That's when Michael and Lisa got married and moved into a tiny apartment. They were drowning in debt from school loans and credit cards. My husband Tom was still alive then. We had just received money from his mother when she passed away, quite a lot of money. "Mom, we're looking at houses," Michael told me one Sunday at dinner. "But everything costs so much. We can't afford anything nice with what we earn." I noticed how Lisa looked away whenever they talked about money. She stared at her phone whenever Michael mentioned their money problems. But I also saw how much my son loved her. His whole face lit up when she smiled. Tom and I talked about helping them for weeks. We could help with the down payment, Tom suggested one evening. Or, I said, getting an idea, we could buy the whole house ourselves. Let them live in it. They could pay us a small rent until they're ready to own it themselves. Tom studied my face carefully. "You're thinking about putting just your name on the house, aren't you? Like a safety net." I nodded. You know how marriages can be. Sometimes they don't work out. If something bad happened, at least Michael would be protected. It seemed so smart back then. So generous and kind. We found a perfect house, a beautiful 4-bedroom, home with a big backyard for the grandchildren we hoped would come. I put everything in my name only. The deed, the insurance, the taxes, everything. Michael and Lisa were so happy. They moved in like newlyweds starting their dream life. For a while, everything was wonderful. They paid us a small rent each month, just enough to cover the property taxes. Tom and I felt good about giving our son such a great start in life. But slowly, things changed. Lisa started telling people I was Michael's mother who helped with the house. Then it became Michael's mother who gave us some money for the house. Over the years, the story changed until most people believed Michael had bought the house himself with just a little help from his parents. I never corrected anyone. Why would I? It wasn't about getting credit. It was about family. Tom died 5 years ago. In my sadness, I became even more generous. I stopped making them pay rent at all. Your family, I told Michael when he tried to pay. This is what family does for each other. Now, sitting in my car looking at that house, I realized something sad. I had been erased from our family's success story. My phone buzzed. More comments on Lisa's post. More strangers saying I was the person nobody wanted. But mixed in were a few kind voices, people calling the post cruel and mean. One comment made me stop cold. That's someone's mother. How would you feel if your daughter-in-law posted this about your mom? Lisa's response came fast and was brutal. Some mothers-in-law earn their place in the family. Others just expect it because they gave birth. I believe in earned respect, not automatic entitlement. Earned respect. I thought about all the Sunday dinners I cooked. All the times I babysat so they could go on dates. The emergency money I gave them when Michael's car broke down, or when Lisa needed money for her real estate license. I thought about the house, my house, where they'd lived without paying rent for 5 years. What exactly did I need to do to earn my place? My phone rang. Michael's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, my heart jumped. Finally, my son was calling to defend me, to make his wife take down that horrible post. Mum. His voice sounded tight and stressed. We need to talk. Yes, we do, I agreed, thinking he meant the post. Lisa showed me what you commented on her photo. That was completely wrong of you. The world seemed to spin. Wrong. Michael, did you see what she posted? She asked people which family member they'd delete, and she circled my face. It was just a joke, Mom. You know how social media is. But saying you own our house, that's taking things too far. Just a joke. My public humiliation was just a joke. Michael, I said slowly, I do own your house. My name is on the deed. I bought it 12 years ago. Remember? There was a long pause. That was different. You bought it for us. It's been our home for over 10 years. Yes, it's been your home in my house. Mom, you can't be serious about this. We've put our whole lives into this place. We renovated the kitchen. We redid the bathrooms. We fixed up the yard. This is where my kids grew up. With money I saved you by not charging rent, I pointed out. Another pause. Even longer this time. When Michael spoke again, his voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. What exactly are you threatening to do? The question hung there between us. I'm not threatening anything, Michael. I'm simply telling you the facts. Your wife seems confused about who owns what in this family. You're being mean and angry. I'm being accurate. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my own small apartment. The one I'd moved to after Tom died, so Michael's family could have more space in the big house. I'd made my life smaller to make theirs bigger. And this was my reward. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I drove to my house and used my key to walk through the front door. Helen? Lisa's voice came from the kitchen, sharp with surprise. What are you doing here? I live here. I said simply, looking around at all the changes they'd made. New furniture, new paint, new decorations. They'd made it so much theirs that it felt strange to me. Even though legally every inch was mine. Michael appeared from the living room, his face red. Mom, you can't just walk in here anymore. This is our home. Actually, it's my home. You live in it. Lisa stepped closer to Michael, standing beside him like they were facing an enemy. This is ridiculous. You haven't lived here in 5 years. But I've owned it for 12 years, I replied, pulling out my phone. Would you like me to show you the deed? It's all very clearly written down. The teenagers Sophie and Max appeared in the doorway. They looked confused and uncomfortable, the way kids do when the adult world suddenly becomes unstable. Grandma Helen, Sophie said quietly. Is everything okay? Before I could answer, Lisa turned to the kids. Go upstairs. The adults need to talk. I watched my grandchildren walk back upstairs, probably to text their friends about the weird drama happening downstairs. Look, Michael said, lowering his voice. I understand you're upset about the social media thing. Lisa probably went too far. But you can't use the house as some kind of weapon. I'm not using anything as a weapon. I'm simply standing up for my rights as the property owner. Lisa crossed her arms. Fine. You want to play legal games? We've been living here for 12 years. We've improved the property a lot. We have rights as people who live here. You can't just kick us out. I almost smiled at her confidence. Actually, as my lawyer explained to me this afternoon, since you've never paid rent and there's no official rental agreement, you're considered guests in my home. I can ask you to leave with 30 days' notice. The color drained from both their faces. You called a lawyer. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. I called Mr. Patterson. He handled your father's will, so he knows about our family's financial situation. Very thorough man. Lisa's sweet mask was cracking now, showing something much harder underneath. You bitter old woman. You can't stand that we're happy, that we've built something beautiful here. What you've built, I said quietly, is a life on my foundation. And apparently you've built it while making fun of the woman who made it possible. Michael looked between us, clearly torn. Mom, please. Let's all calm down and figure this out. Lisa apologized for the post. Mum, let's talk about making this house thing official somehow. But I was done being the easygoing one, the nice mother who always bent to keep the peace. The house thing is already official, Michael. It has been for 12 years. What's new is that I'm no longer pretending otherwise. The next morning, Mr. Patterson's office felt safe and calm. He was 73 years old and had been a lawyer longer than some people had been alive. Helen, he said, looking at the papers on his desk, you're in an interesting position. Legally, you're absolutely right. Practically, this is going to get messy. How messy? He leaned back in his chair. Your son and daughter-in-law have lived in that house for 12 years. They've made improvements. They've built their lives there. While they don't legally own it, they can argue they deserve payment for the improvements they made, or time to move, or a chance to buy it if you decide to sell. I thought about the renovated kitchen, the finished basement, the deck Michael had built 2 summers ago. And what do I owe them for improvements to my property? Mr. Patterson smiled for the first time. That's where it gets interesting. Since they made those improvements without your written permission, and since they haven't been paying rent or property taxes, they have very little legal standing to demand payment. So I could ask them to leave with proper notice. Yes, but Helen, I have to ask, is this really what you want? This will likely destroy your relationship with your son. I thought about Lisa's post, about the comments calling me extra baggage, about my son accusing me of being mean for just stating facts. Maybe that relationship is already destroyed, I said quietly. For the next hour, we talked about my options. I could make them leave. I could sell the house and force them to move. I could make them sign a rental agreement and pay real rent. Or I could transfer ownership to Michael with or without payment. "There's one more thing," Mr. Patterson said. "I've been looking at your late husband's papers for another matter, and I noticed something interesting. When Tom inherited from his mother 12 years ago, there was more than just cash. He pulled out another thick file. There's a trust fund that was set up for your son, with you managing it. It's been growing for 12 years with compound interest." My breath caught. "How much?" "As of last month, just over $400,000. I stared at the number. Michael had a trust fund, a huge trust fund that I'd been managing without really paying attention to it. Tom never told Michael about this. The trust documents say it was meant to be revealed when Michael turned 45 or when you died, whichever came first. Michael turns 43 next month. A plan began forming in my mind. Not revenge exactly, but something that would teach some valuable lessons about assumptions and feeling entitled. "Mr. Patterson," I said slowly, "I think I know exactly what I want to do." 3 days later, I was ready. I'd had time to think and plan. And I discovered just how deep Lisa's lies went. I decided to look at my financial records more carefully. Tom had always handled most of our money stuff, and after he died, I just let everything grow automatically. But Mr. Patterson's news about Michael's trust fund made me curious about what else I might have missed. What I found in my bank statements made my blood run cold. For the past 2 years, someone had been making small charges to my credit card. Nothing huge that would trigger an alarm. $50 here, $30 there. A subscription service. Some online purchases. Some app downloads. The charges came from different stores, but they all traced back to one source. Lisa's phone. She'd been using my credit card number for her personal stuff. Betty, my neighbor, helped me figure out the timeline. I always wondered how Lisa could afford those expensive purses. She admitted as we sat in my kitchen surrounded by bank statements. "Michael's a good accountant, but those bags cost more than my car payment." The deeper I looked, the worse it got. Lisa had been showing off on social media as a successful real estate agent. But according to her license records, she'd only sold 3 houses in the past 2 years. Her income was almost nothing, yet she was posting photos of spa days, shopping trips, expensive dinners. All paid for, I now realized, by my credit card. I added up the total. Over $8,000 in charges I didn't make. Small enough to hide, large enough to fund the fancy lifestyle she was showing off online. The same online presence where she'd humiliated me for entertainment. My phone rang. Lisa's name flashed on the screen. "Helen, we need to talk." Her voice was different now, less confident than before. "Yes, we do," I agreed. "Michael and I have been talking about the house situation. We want to make this right. We're prepared to offer you fair rent starting immediately." "How generous of you," I said, looking at the credit card statement on my table. "And how exactly do you plan to pay this rent?" Pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean, according to the real estate database, you've sold 3 houses in 2 years. That's maybe $15,000 in commissions before taxes. Michael makes $60,000 at his job. So on $90,000 a year total income, how exactly have you been funding your lifestyle?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't know what you're suggesting." "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. For instance, the fact that my credit card has been charged $8,000 in the past 2 years for purchases I didn't make." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "Lisa, are you there?" "Those charges," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "I can explain those." "I'm sure you can." Just like you could explain why it was okay to publicly humiliate the woman whose credit card you've been stealing from. I never meant to. You never meant to get caught, I interrupted. There's a difference. When I hung up, I felt something I haven't experienced in years. The rush of taking control. The next morning brought an unexpected friend. Sophie, my 17-year-old granddaughter, showed up at my apartment with red eyes and a serious look on her face. "Grandma Helen, I need to tell you something," she said, sitting down at my kitchen table. I poured her some juice, noticing how grown-up she'd become. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" "Mum's been lying about a lot of things." Sophie's voice shook. "I heard her on the phone last night talking to her sister about the credit card thing." "She wasn't sorry, Grandma. She was angry that you found out." My heart ached for this girl, caught between her mother's selfishness and her own sense of right and wrong. "What else did you hear?" Sophie pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. "She's been planning this for months. Look." She showed me text messages between Lisa and her sister, Karen. Messages about finally getting the old lady out of the picture and claiming what's rightfully ours. Messages about how Michael was too soft and needed to grow a backbone when it came to his mother. The worst message was from 3 weeks ago. "Posted the perfect thing today. Time to show Helen exactly where she stands in this family. Michael will thank me later when he sees how much happier we are without her constant interference." The social media post hadn't been a random joke. It had been a planned attack designed to humiliate me into backing down. "There's more," Sophie continued. "She's been telling people that you've been secretly charging us rent this whole time, and that you're trying to kick us out because you need money. She's making you sound desperate and greedy." I studied my granddaughter's face, seeing Tom's honesty and Michael's gentle nature, but also something stronger, something that wouldn't be bullied. "Sophie, I want you to understand that whatever happens between your mother and me, it doesn't change how I feel about you and Max." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know, Grandma. But I also know what's right and wrong. And what Mum did to you was wrong." That afternoon, Mr. Patterson called with shocking news. "Helen, we have a problem. Michael filed papers this morning claiming something called adverse possession of the property." "What does that mean?" "It means he's arguing that since they've lived there openly for 12 years, maintained the property, and you've allowed them to live there without formal rent agreements, they have a legal claim to ownership through continuous occupation." I felt the ground shift beneath me. Can they do that? They can try. It's a long shot. In some states, if someone occupies a property openly for a certain number of years, while the owner takes no action to stop them, they can claim ownership. The good news is that in our state, the requirement is 20 years, not 12. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by anger. Michael was actually trying to steal my house through legal tricks. "But there's something else," Mr. Patterson continued. "They've hired an expensive lawyer named Margaret Stevens. On Michael's salary, there's no way they can afford her. Then how are they paying her? That's what we need to find out. Because if they're using credit obtained through fraud, we have them completely caught." The fight came sooner than expected. Michael appeared at my door the next evening. "Mum, we need to end this craziness," he said. But his voice didn't sound sure. "I agree completely," I replied. "The craziness of your wife stealing my credit card. The craziness of you trying to claim my house. The craziness of publicly humiliating the woman who gave you everything." Michael flinched at each word. "It doesn't have to be like this. We can work something out." "You mean the way we worked out you living rent-free in my house for 5 years? That was different. You offered. And you've repaid my kindness by letting your wife commit credit card fraud and trying to steal my property. Michael slumped into my chair, suddenly looking older than his 42 years. She said it was the only way to protect our family. That you were getting unstable. That you might try to take the house away for no reason. So the solution was to humiliate me publicly, and then actually try to take my house away. When you put it like that, it sounds crazy. It is crazy, Michael. Your wife has been stealing from me for 2 years and manipulating you into thinking I'm the problem. For a moment I saw doubt flicker across his face. Then his phone buzzed. I watched him read a text. His expression hardened again. Lisa says you've been spreading lies about her to Sophie, trying to turn our kids against their mother. I haven't said a word to Sophie about any of this. But apparently she has eyes and ears of her own. Michael stood up suddenly. Look, Mom, here's the deal. We're willing to pay you $2,000 a month in rent starting immediately. That's fair. In return, you drop all this nonsense about credit card fraud. And if I don't accept your generous offer, then we'll see you in court. Lisa's attorney thinks we have a good case, and she's prepared to argue that your recent behavior shows you're not mentally stable enough to manage property ownership. The threat hung in the air between us. They were going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent. Michael, I said quietly, do you remember when you were 8 years old and you broke Mrs. Henderson's window with a baseball? He looked confused. Yeah? You came home crying, terrified of getting in trouble. Do you remember what I told you? You said that breaking the window was an accident, but lying about it would be a choice. And what did we do? We went over together and I apologized and offered to pay for the window with my allowance money. I nodded. You learned that day that taking responsibility for your mistakes is what makes you a good person. What you're doing now, Michael, isn't an accident. It's a choice. The next big discovery came from Max, my 15-year-old grandson. He called me while his parents were at their lawyer's office. Grandma, I found something in Mom's office. Can you come pick me up? 20 minutes later, Max climbed into my car with a folder clutched in his hands. What is it? I asked. Mom's been keeping records of everything, he said, opening the folder to show carefully organized documents, bank statements, credit card applications, even printouts of my social media accounts. I stared in disbelief. Lisa had been systematically documenting my life, my finances, my online activity. There were notes in her handwriting, analyzing my spending patterns, my social interactions, even my health information gathered from public posts about doctor's appointments. Max, where did you find this? In her desk, in a folder labeled Mim Jenkins Strategy. Grandma, there's more. She's been applying for credit cards using your information. My blood ran cold as Max showed me copies of credit applications. All with my name and social security number, but with Lisa's email address and phone number. How many cards? 6 that I found. And look at this. He pulled out a sheet covered in calculations. She'd been planning to max them all out, and then claim identity theft when the bills came. The scope of Lisa's fraud was breathtaking. She hadn't just been stealing small amounts from my existing card. She'd been building an entire identity theft scheme, planning to destroy my credit while making herself rich. There's something else, Max said quietly. She's been recording your phone calls. He showed me a smartphone app that had been logging and storing audio files. Every conversation I'd had with Michael over the past 6 months had been recorded. She told Dad that if he tried to cause trouble, she'd have evidence that you're losing your memory and saying crazy things. The manipulation was so thorough, so calculated, that I almost admired its boldness. Almost. Max, I need you to send me copies of everything in this folder. Already done, he said, showing me his phone. I took pictures of every page. Grandma, I'm really sorry about all this. Mum's been different lately. Meaner, even to me and Sophie. I reached over and squeezed his hand. This isn't your fault, sweetheart. And you've been incredibly brave to show me this.